Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I needed to get away. Away from the city, away from the noise, away from people who drain me dry. I found a listing for a cabin deep in the Montana wilderness. Cheap, isolated, and just what I needed. The description said no phone signal, no internet. Perfect. The drive took longer than expected. By the time I reached the cabin, the sky was already bruised with the last traces of daylight. The place was exactly as advertised. Old, but well kept, nestled between towering pines. A single dirt road led up to it, and beyond that, nothing but the wild. I noticed something odd right away. The mirrors. There were too many. One in the small living room above the fireplace, one in the narrow hallway, and at least two in the bedroom. All of them old, with tarnished edges. I told myself it didn't matter. I was here to clear my mind. I unpacked, made myself a quick dinner, and settled in with a book. The first night was quiet, except for the wind slipping through the trees. Then came the second night. It was the knocking that woke me. Slow, rhythmic. Knock, knock, knock. I lay there listening, my heart thudding. It wasn't the creaking of the cabin settling. Someone was outside. I reached for the hunting knife I had brought, something my brother had insisted on. "You're going out into the middle of nowhere," he'd said. "At least take something for protection." I had laughed at the time. Now, I wasn't laughing. I forced myself out of bed and crept toward the window. The outside was nothing but darkness and trees, the forest pressing in on all sides. The knocking had stopped, but my skin crawled with the feeling that I wasn't alone. Then a voice, soft, close, whispering through the wooden walls. "Let me in, Jason." I nearly dropped the knife. Jason, that was my name, but no one knew I was here. I had told no one, hadn't even left a note. My stomach twisted. I swallowed hard and pressed my back against the wall, gripping the knife so tightly my knuckles ached. 3 slow knocks, then silence. I stood there for what felt like an hour, barely breathing. When the sun finally rose, I forced myself to step outside. My breath came in quick, shallow gasps as I saw the footprints in the snow. One set, bare feet. They circled the cabin, around and around. I packed up and left in under 10 minutes. As I drove away, I caught one last glimpse of the cabin in my rearview mirror. For just a second, I thought I saw something standing by the tree lean, watching me leave. Story 2. The cabin was exactly what we wanted, secluded, sturdy, and cheap. The kind of place that smelled like old wood and dried tobacco, where every floorboard had a secret to tell. It sat deep in the woods, far from the main road, with nothing but tall pines and silence for miles. It was me and my buddy Jake. We weren't looking for trouble, just a weekend of fishing, drinking, and forgetting the world. The cabin had been sitting there for decades, passed down through some family that clearly stopped caring about it a long time ago. It was still solid, though, and the biggest feature, the thing that really caught my eye, was the fireplace. It was massive, old stone from floor to ceiling, a blackened iron grate resting in front of it. The kind of fireplace that made you think of ghost stories and old hunters warming their hands after a long day. The chimney was wide and deep, disappearing into shadows when you looked up inside. We cracked open our beers and settled in for the night. The fire was warm, the drinks were cold, and for a little while, everything felt perfect until I heard the scraping. It was faint at first, like nails dragging against stone. It came from inside the chimney. Jake, already a few drinks in, barely opened his eyes. "Squirrel," he muttered, waving a hand dismissively. But the sound didn't stop. If anything, it got louder. Scrape, scrape, thud. Something big was moving inside the chimney. I leaned forward, my heart beating a little faster. The fire crackled, casting long shadows across the walls. Another thud, followed by the sound of something shifting, as if a heavy body was adjusting itself in the tight space. Jake sat up now, frowning. "That ain't no squirrel." Then, before either of us could react, soot exploded out of the fireplace like something had kicked it loose from above. A thick black cloud rolled across the floor, filling the room with the acrid stench of burnt wood and rot. Then we saw it. A hand, long, pale, and impossibly thin, shot out from the darkness of the chimney. It moved with unnatural speed, fingers stretching too far, each tipped with ragged black nails that looked sharp enough to gut a deer. The hand clawed at the bricks, dragging itself down, leaving long streaks in the soot-covered stone. Jake yelled and grabbed the nearest thing, the fire poker. He swung at the hand, but the moment the metal struck, the thing yanked back into the dark, disappearing like it was never there. We sat frozen, listening. Silence. Then came the breathing. Deep, wet, hungry. It wasn't coming from inside the cabin. It was still inside the chimney. Jake and I looked at each other, our faces pale in the firelight. We weren't drunk anymore. "Outside," I whispered. We grabbed our coats and bolted, slamming the cabin door shut behind us. We spent the night in my truck, too scared to sleep, watching the cabin through the windshield. We kept expecting to see something step out onto the porch, but nothing did. When the sun finally rose, we decided we were done. We packed up without speaking, stuffing our gear into the truck like the place was on fire. But before we left, I made one stupid mistake. I looked inside the fireplace. The soot had settled, the fire long gone. But there on the bricks I saw them. Handprints. Not just one, not just two. Dozens. Each print looked like it had been pressed deep into the soot, stretching upward, toward the sky, like something had crawled down but never crawled back out. We didn't talk much on the way home. Jake told me to never book a cabin again. I agreed. But sometimes when I sit by my own fireplace, I catch myself listening. And sometimes I hear scraping. Story 3. I swear I wasn't lost. I've been hiking in upstate New York for years. I knew the trails, knew the markers, knew the way the land folded into itself. But that day, the storm came in fast, too fast. One minute the sky was blue. The next, the clouds rolled in like something out of an old horror movie. The air went still, thick, humming with electricity. Then the rain started. Not a drizzle, a downpour. It was the kind of rain that drowns the sound of your own breathing, that turns dirt into quicksand. The trail I had been following vanished beneath a river of mud, the trees becoming shifting shadows as the mist curled in. I kept walking, trying to find my way back, but the deeper I went, the more unfamiliar the woods became. And then I saw it, the cabin. I froze. There weren't supposed to be any cabins out here. No campsites, no ranger stations, just miles and miles of forest. But there it was, tucked between the trees like it had been waiting for me. A small wooden structure, the kind you'd expect to see in an old pioneer town, with a slanted roof and a single window. And inside that window, a candle burned, a soft, flickering glow, a sign of life. I should have turned around right then. Every instinct told me to. But the rain was soaking through my clothes, the wind slicing at my skin. I was shivering so hard my teeth chattered. So I stepped forward. The door was old but sturdy, the wood swollen from years of rain. I knocked once. Silence. Knocked again. Still nothing. But the door, it creaked open. Not all the way. Just enough. An invitation. Inside, the cabin was warm. Too warm. A fire burned in the stone hearth, crackling and bright, as if someone had just stoked it. A small wooden table sat in the center of the room. Two chairs pulled up like someone had been expecting company. Shelves lined the walls, filled with things that didn't belong in a place like this. Old books, jars of something dark and thick, an antique radio that hummed with static. And then there was the smell. With smoke, yes, but underneath that something else, something damp and rotting, like meat left out in the sun. I stepped in fully, closing the door behind me. The wind howled outside, rattling the walls. But in here, it was silent. Almost too silent. That's when I saw the pictures. Framed photographs covered the far wall. Some black and white, some in faded color. At first, they looked like normal old pictures. People standing in front of houses, kids playing in fields, hikers on trails. Then I saw the faces. My face. Every single one of them. Some from years ago. Me as a kid. Me as a teenager. Me from college. And then, in the center, a fresh one. A photo of me today. Standing in the woods. Wearing the exact clothes I had on. Taken just hours ago. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen a camera. Hadn't seen another person. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. My breath came fast and ragged, my chest tight. The fire in the hearth flared brighter, the shadows in the room stretching, twisting. And then, a footstep. Not mine, not outside, inside. It came from the back of the cabin, from behind a curtain that led to what I assumed was a small bedroom. I didn't wait to find out who or what was there. I ran. I didn't stop to close the door. I didn't look back. I just barreled into the rain, slipping in the mud, branches whipping at my face. My lungs burned. My legs ached. But I kept going, fueled by pure, animal terror. I don't know how long I ran before I saw my car through the trees. I fumbled with my keys, threw myself inside, and locked the doors. My hands shook as I started the engine, peeling out onto the flooded road. When I finally dared to look back, the cabin was gone. Nothing but trees and darkness. No door, no candle, no light in the window. I never should have been able to see it from the road. It should have been deep in the woods, hidden. But now, there wasn't even a clearing where it had been. just solid forest, as if it had never existed. I didn't sleep that night. Hell, I barely slept the nights after. I tried to tell myself I had imagined it, that maybe I had been disoriented from the storm. Maybe it was some kind of weird old hunting shack that I had stumbled across by accident. But then, 3 nights later, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I saw it. Not outside, not in the woods, inside my head. A single candle burning in the dark. And somehow, I knew it was waiting for me to come back.